Last summer was one of stark difference for me. This is when I signed up for college, said goodbye to my friends, and I went to EMT school, where I made new connections and discoveries. I spent a month in Lander, Wyoming, which is a small town in the center of Wyoming, um, in completing my EMT training. This town sits just miles from the Wind River Indian Reservation, and it's one of the biggest in the country. Among the requirements for completion of the course was 2 shifts at the local emergency department. Living near the reservation for a month isn't enough to fully understand a different culture, of course, but it was long enough for me to get a glimpse into the sociological manifestations of a long oppressed people and to realize my place in that very socialization. I've never felt different from the majority of the population in my life. I've always been white and middle class. Wherever I've lived, it's been exactly that, white middle class. I could say then that I'm included in what many people with the same socioeconomic background as me would say, the normal American society. If we think back to racial segregation in the States previous to the 1950s, we'll remember not only the physical but social segregation as well. Well, this is what the reservation is too. When it was set up, it was exactly that. Today it's no different, and the natives are certainly seen as outliers in society by the majority. The reservation is in great contrast with the middle-class suburbs of surrounding towns, and it's similar to racial segregation in that sense that there is a physical barrier between the haves and the have-nots. I come from a community where everyone is equal. There's no physical barrier between me and another society that's seen differently. We're all the same where I come from. Seeing this inequality contributes to my understanding of the different social categories that frame me as different from others, and how privileged I am coming from the majority. In my time at the ER, there was a clear and widely accepted conclusion that the majority of people visiting the hospital were from the reservation. This was actually a shocking finding, and the more time I spent there, the more I thought about why this was. Could be a result of socialization? Well, this is what I came to. In my life, I've had many hospital visits, a lot having to do with mountain biking injuries or my friends. But in addition, I've had access to a doctor that checks on my health twice a year, a dentist that checks my teeth, and even one that straightens them. My life has been filled with easy access to definitive and more relevant preventative care. As I think back to the hospital in Wyoming, I can realize why there were so many natives coming in to the ER. Unlike me, many don't have access to preventative care, and socialization has kept Native Americans from the health care and given me access to it. One of the most important attributes to anyone's culture is its history. If we look at Native American history, we tend to think of them as sitting quietly in America's shadow. Really, America obviously didn't try to live symbiotically with the natives, and chaos soon ensued. The reservation had a rough and tormented upbringing, and according to author Lee Bell in her essay, Theoretical Foundations for Social Justice Education, we can deduce to a certain extent the results of this upbringing in modern time. She writes, historical context and detail can reveal the relationships between particular actions, practices, and policies from the past and their structural and cumulative outcomes in the present. What she's saying boils down to the fact that our history shapes who we are and what we do. In my history, unlike Native Americans, I haven't faced oppression in the way that the reservation has. I haven't lived in anybody's or any culture's shadow. I'm not an alien in my own home. I feel that I belong. In the case of the reservation and myself, its history has shaped what it is today. An important part of my history is my Judaism. I go to temple maybe once or twice a month, and of course from holidays and the like. I was a non-religious Jew growing up, and despite going to temple every so often, didn't get bar mitzvahed. There do exist certain stereotypes against Jews, though, today. Oh, you must wear one of those funny little hats. Do you want to be a lawyer? Does your dad have a big beard? And I've faced a few of those in my life, but this isn't the same as cultural imperialism, what Native Americans have faced. In her essay, Five Faces of Oppression, Iris Marion Young describes cultural imperialism. To experience cultural imperialism means to experience how the dominant meanings of a society render the particular perspective of one's own group invisible, at the same time as they stereotype one's group and mark it as the other. For example, when Columbus encountered Native Americans for the first time, he branded them as Indians. This, in and of itself, is a cultural imperialism, and that still holds today. And people all across the country believe that these people are called Indians, while they're really called Native Americans. This has helped me realize that even though I have faced stereotyping, I have not experienced the devastation of cultural imperialism. Now, it seems as though the prejudice, hate, socialization, and inequality is a never-ending cycle that can't be breached. And it's true that the world is a cruel place and these problems do exist. Although my experience on the lives and culture of natives and the reservation is very limited, it was one that has taught me a very important lesson. Thinking back to my time in the hospital, I realized something that I never had before. Where else in this cruel world can two people from completely different socioeconomic backgrounds, from vastly different cultures, an oppressor and a subordinate, be treated as equals? An almost innately expressed rule in healthcare is to treat your patient to the best of your ability, no matter who they are. Period. I realize my place in society, and that I have a great privilege. I will not be a bystander to oppression in this world, because to do so would be as if committing the crime myself.